Please welcome our speaker, Scott Severson. He is the CEO of BrandPoint, a content-first digital marketing agency. Scott has worked in digital marketing for more than 20 years and has a wealth of experience in digital and content marketing best practices for customer and B2B marketing. Scott and his team leverage this expertise to help BrandPoint's clients create and run successful marketing programs. Thank you for joining us, Scott.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Rachel. I'm Scott Severson, CEO of BrandPoint, and thank you for attending our webinar today. I hope this finds you all healthy and doing well in the midst of our current COVID spike. So during our time together today, I'm going to be sharing some ideas and tactics on how you can use content and digital marketing best practices to grow your business. Many of the ideas that I am going to share today, you can do yourself, but if you don't have the bandwidth to pursue these ideas, we are, of course, happy to lend a hand. As Rachel said, we will also be hosting a Q&A at the end of this session. So please make note of any questions that you may have as I am going through this. Also, we have a great ebook that covers a lot of the ideas that we are going to be discussing today, and we will send a copy of that ebook to everyone after the webinar. In our ebook, we're going to cover what a healthy content marketing practice can look like in your business. What are the components of this practice? And then what do you need to do to have strength in each of these areas? We will be emailing this out, so please be on the lookout for an email that has this ebook in it in your inbox. Okay, to start off, a little bit about BrandPoint. We are a content-first digital marketing agency. At BrandPoint, content is really in our DNA. For over 25 years, we have used this content expertise to drive consistent and predictable results for our clients. We like to say that we take a content-first approach to digital marketing because content is the primary way that brands attract, engage, convert, and retain customers today. So whether it's developing a marketing strategy, improving your SEO, creating killer content for your website, or generating media placements, our content-first approach helps us drive results for our clients, and as well as consistency of messaging to your target audience. Manufacturing clients in particular are a core practice area for BrandPoint, and I'm happy to report that the majority of our manufacturing clients that I've spoken to, their businesses are doing well during the pandemic, so that's been great news. So a BrandPoint engagement typically starts off by helping our clients with their strategy. This is essentially about answering the question, what are we developing for who? And more importantly, why are we developing this? I think it's really about bringing to life a vision of who your customer is, what their customer journey looks like, and what content do they need at various stages of their journey to inform them becoming your customer. Once we have that strategy in place, we then have teams of writers and designers and web developers and videographers who create the content to execute this vision. We also have a proprietary content distribution network to help our clients get their stories in front of new audiences on over 1,100 media publications like the LA Times, San Francisco Gate, and Chicago Tribune. So that was how I explain what I do. And this is pretty much what my family thinks I do. which maybe isn't that far off. Okay, to get us started, we need to agree on what we're talking about. What do we even mean when we say content marketing? There's a lot of definitions out there, but this one's my favorite from the Content Marketing Institute. Content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. If you only remember one thing from this definition, I encourage you to remember the term value and ask yourself, are you providing true value to your audience through the content that you're creating and providing them? Because if you're not providing true value, you're not going to see the profitable action part, customer action part that we all want to see. So I believe that content marketing is the key to connecting with your audience, building your brand, and ultimately growing your sales. So you may be thinking, that all sounds great, but I'm a manufacturing company. How does all this relate to my business today? So these are the questions that we need to try and answer during our time together. How do we support your business goals with the content that you create? How do we deploy content to generate more leads? And how do we employ content to nurture those leads into customers? Hopefully we touch on all of those things during our time. Now, we really can't get into that without addressing the elephant in the room. We have some challenges in the world that we live in today. If we think about the pandemic we've been living with for 2 years, and then how that's fundamentally changed our world, and how many of us are working remotely now and we can't do in-person events. Many of you in manufacturing have supply chain issues that are creating problems. Budget cuts are coming up. So is it a good time to be focused on content marketing even? I believe the answer is yes, although I am biased, admittedly. But I believe that right now, as our interactions are increasingly online, content marketing is not a nice to have, but a need to have. And it's an important part of pushing your business forward to set yourself up for success in an increasingly digital world. That's just reality today. Further, it's important to note that as manufacturers, you all face some unique challenges. Many of you have very complex products that you produce, and there's a lot of complexity in your business that requires a deep understanding and expertise to use your products. One of the things that we hear a lot from manufacturing clients is there's a perception that it's a dull industry and it's hard to market some manufacturing products because of that. Well, I believe that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, that if you believe your industry or product group is dull, that can result in dull content that doesn't really do what you want it to do. So we've got to get over that challenge. We have, the expectation of expertise. Your audience isn't looking to be sold to. They're expecting expertise from you before they can trust you. Many of you have long buying cycles. I'm amazed when I talk to some of our clients about what that sales cycle looks like and how long some of these big equipment purchases can take. So reaching decision makers during this longer buying cycle requires content that reflects that and supports a longer customer journey at all of the stages. A lot of you work in very specialized niches, and That requires content for these situations to make them more tangible and relatable to how prospects can leverage your services for their niche products. So that's a good example of case studies being very important. And I think another challenge that we have in manufacturing is because in many cases, buying decisions are made by a group of decision makers, not just one person, it can be difficult to reach that right subject matter expert. So given all of these issues, I really believe it makes a strong case for investing in creating content that can overcome some of these issues and get your prospective customers excited about what you're doing and meeting their needs through valuable content. So given that backdrop for this conversation, I want to take a brief step back in time. Let's go back to 2008. It wasn't that long ago, but our world was a lot less complex in 2008. And as we think about the world of advertising and marketing and PR, it was much simpler and more bifurcated. Back then, paid media was something that advertising folks did, and earned media was primarily the focus of PR. In 2008, most of you weren't on Facebook. If you were probably in college. And we weren't even thinking about shared and owned media, at least not in the ways that we think about them today. So while this siloed approach certainly made it easier for me to explain what I do to my family, which I'll get to do next week, the separation, as we know, is just no longer true. This is what our landscape looks like today. It's a blending. If you're in marketing, you have to seamlessly blend paid, earned, shared, and owned media, and be in every channel that your customers expect you to be in. We call this model PESO for short. So within each PESO category, you can see that we have an array of tactics to choose from. And going back to our definition, each one of these all touch on different aspects of content marketing. So our goal with all of this complexity is to find the right mix of tactics for each category that is going to help you achieve your business goals. So as we look at all of this, I like to approach PESO like I would if I were building a house. And when we're building a house or a structure, we really start with the foundation, and then we build up from there. But the strength of the foundation really makes for whether or not the building is going to be long lasting and solid. And as it relates to looking at your media strategy and your marketing strategy, I believe that your owned media really acts as the foundation of your broader marketing strategy. So I recommend that your owned channel is where your very first marketing dollar should go for two reasons. One is your owned media helps you attract an audience based solely on the value of your content, and it establishes your expertise and helps build trust with your target audience. The second reason is a strong owned media foundation will make all of your paid, earned, shared channels all the more effective. So today we need to really be effective in all of the channels where our customers are. So that likely means we need to be effective in each of these. So let's take a minute to break these down. Starting with owned. Owned is really all about the content that you've created. It's everything that lives on your website. It's your blog, your resources, your videos, everything. So why does it matter so much? Is it really going to improve your sales? The answer is yes. I believe your owned content is really critical to your sales success. Now, if I search for any of your companies by name, it's likely going to be the first result in the search. The problem is the majority of your potential customers are not always searching for you by name. 71% of your potential customers begin their customer journey with an unbranded search. What that means is they're searching for solutions to their problems. They're not necessarily searching for you, unfortunately. So that means if you don't have content that is going to help you show up when your target audience is searching for solutions to their problems, you are invisible to nearly 3/4 of your potential audience. That's a big problem. If you want to show up in unbranded search results, great content is the price of admission. I think this is interesting, and this stat is actually pre-pandemic. Today, 85% of your relationship with a company or brand takes place without ever talking to a human. And with the pandemic, that's only increasing. And I think it makes sense. How many of you like to speak to a salesperson when you're just beginning to research a product or a solution to your problem? Most don't. There's a few of you who probably do. I sometimes do. But most of us like to begin by doing a little bit of research. And that's how we start our customer journeys. And we talk to a salesperson when we're a little further downstream. So your digital content is really critical to this relationship and in building your business. This means your content needs to guide the majority, or at least the early stages of your customer's journey. Your content on your site needs to make your case, and it needs to tell your value story. You also need to have a website that's easy for people to navigate and where users can easily find what they're looking for. According to a recent Thomas survey, 76% of industrial buyers list difficult navigation as the most important reason for leaving a website without considering buying. Similarly, 61% prefer suppliers with search capabilities on their websites. So not only do you need to have great content, but you need to architect your site in a way that is really thoughtful about that prospective client and what their experience is once they land on your site. All right, so we know, hopefully now, how important it is to have strategic content on our site. So piece of cake, right? Let's get cracking, produce some amazing content, no problem. Well, in reality, it can be a little tricky, and that's why people hire us, but you can do this on your own. So where do we start? Let's look at some examples. Your blog is a great place to start for most companies. In these examples, our clients use their blog to cement their expertise. We also weave in references and links to their other owned media. The key here is to make sure that your blog is truly valuable, we've heard that before, to your audience. A great place to start is to ask a question. If you think about what are your customers' top 10 or even 20 questions, that's the beginning of a content strategy. If you think about what are all of the problems that our prospective buyers are searching for, where we want to show up when they're doing that search, that's the beginning of kind of creating the strategy to build out your content. Investing in video is increasingly important. We engage with video at rates that are off the charts compared with any other type of content. And frankly, we have short attention spans. So video is incredibly important as part of your content strategy. So as you're thinking about what role does video play in your marketing strategy, it can be, videos of your facility or your process or capabilities are all great examples of quality owned media. This is a video that we did for one of our manufacturing clients, Birchwood Contract Manufacturing. I'll just play a couple of seconds of it to give you a feel for the video.
For 65 years, Birchwood Contract Manufacturing has helped companies bring their products to market. We provide mixing, filling, testing, packaging, and shipping for a wide range of products. Birchwood crafts solutions for cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, medical devices, and industrial use. We assure quality control by following current good manufacturing practices. Our facility is both FDA and EPA.
So that was a couple of seconds of the video, but it gives you a flavor of how they're using it to tell their story in what we would consider to be a mixed media video, where it's live action shots that we did and some animation as well. Other examples of owned media include specific content that's tailored for the search queries that you want to show up. Tactical information like how to request a quote. It could be technical content. Is there a certain certification that you hold that would be important to your prospects? Could also be tools. Do you have a checklist or an estimating tool or any useful calculators that would be valuable to your prospective clients? And we've all seen this one, gated content. Gated is another example of owned media. And this is where we get a little further into the funnel. Creating and sharing gated content is a great way to acquire leads and continue to engage your audience. So a gated piece, and you've all seen these, is a piece of content that the audience member has to earn access to. The price of admission is usually their contact information. So a gated piece could be more in-depth information on topics that you maybe touch on your blog. It could be an ebook, it could be a white paper, or it could even be tools, things like checklists or templates we see as gated assets as well. It could even be access to further education. Maybe you do some training workshops or webinars like this that you want to gate access to. The key is, if you're going to use gated content, it's going to provide you a lead, and it provides your lead with even more information that allows you to both boost your credibility, earn trust, and continue to nurture that relationship. So here's an example of what that could look like. With that prospect's email, you can nurture these leads to become supporters and followers and then ultimately future clients. The key here is to have a plan for how are you going to take this lead that you acquired and what are you going to do with it? How are you going to nurture this person along their customer journey to becoming your customer? We'll circle back towards that idea at the end. All right. So that was owned media. The other segments are a little shorter, but owned is really important. So we spent a little more time on that. Next, we're going to talk about earned media, and I'm just going to touch on this. So this section of PESO encompasses your relationships with media, like maybe journalists, trade publications for manufacturing, but it could even mean relationships with news outlets if appropriate to your company. Earned media is all about getting the free exposure that boosts your brand and awareness. So like I said at the beginning of the presentation, earned used to be the sole responsibility of PR agencies, but that's not the case anymore, and there's a lot you can do on your own. So a few examples that we found to work are, if there's a few journalists that you want to have a relationship with where you want to show up, it's probably good to nurture those relationships. You can get quoted. You can submit your expertise to media professionals in your industry. Offer to do a guest interview. If you're quoted on their site, you can ask for a backlink back to your website, which is good for your SEO. Reviews. Your customers can be a source of earned media. Ask your customers to share positive reviews of your work. Finally, guest posts, creating your own thought leadership to be published on sites other than your own can be an earned tactic. On that last point, I've personally found that strategic guest posting can be really beneficial both for my personal brand and our business. I contribute thought leadership content to sites like Forbes and the Content Marketing Institute. And it's just a great way to expose your perspective to new audiences. And the backlink to our site does offer some SEO benefit as well. One of the big challenges with earned media is I think it is the most difficult and time-consuming aspect of PASO. Here's why. No one likes pitching journalists, and it's harder than ever to get a journalist's attention to want to write a piece about your company. The average journalist today gets pitched 500 times a week, so having your concept stand out is really tough. As a result, it takes more energy than ever to secure these earned media placements. So I always recommend to clients, look for the low-hanging earned media fruit and get all that you can find, but then probably focus more on some of the other tactics that are a little bit more within your control. So while your owned media is foundation to your strategy, it can be even more effective when it's supplemented with paid. Paid media is the most predictable way to get your content seen by new audiences in a really saturated landscape. By using paid tactics, one of the nice things is you're also able to target your customer profile with your content. Here's our view on some of the top paid tactics that work well with content marketing. And you're probably doing some of these today. Obviously, Google Ads, creating campaigns to direct people back to your site. If you're not using Google Keyword Planner, take a look at it and look for search volume, because it doesn't do you any good to buy terms that no one is searching for. Another tactic is promoting your content on social. Promoted posts are designed to look like a normal post in the feed, but you're able to apply much more sophisticated targeting filters. Plus, now it's mostly necessary to promote your content. For some reasons, the platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn want you to pay to reach your own audience now, which is good for their bottom line, but not so great for us. 3, if you have a great content asset, you may want to syndicate it to new audiences on content discovery platforms like Taboola or Outbrain would be an example. And finally, consider creating and distributing sponsored content to related news or media sites or even targeted websites. On that last point, sponsored content is extremely powerful and effective. Studies have proven that your audience really doesn't care or respond any differently if it's sponsored or not. Consumers really just want content that provides genuine value. So creating content that features your unique value and expertise, and then distributing that content to a high quality and trustworthy website is a great way to scale up your reach and credibility. To see this in action, one of our clients manufactures a really high-end roofing product. And after distributing a sponsored article to our network of publishers, it was seen by some folks at Menards. And they are a really big lumber and home improvement retailer that we all know here in Minnesota. I didn't know they were $10 billion in sales. So it's a pretty big deal. After seeing the article, a buyer approached our client about carrying their product in the stores. So today you can go to Menards and buy a roofing product, all because a great piece of content was widely distributed and created awareness. So we love seeing that connection between a paid placement resulting in a huge win that results in direct revenue. This leads us to the last section of PESO, shared or social media. We recommend using social to share unique content that is specific for the platform to shine a light on all of your other efforts. Social is really, I view it as the amplifier for all of your other tactics. And I really love this Jay Baer quote, content is fire, social media is gasoline. It's very true. So as you're thinking about your social strategy, it's important to be aware that you're creating content that's appropriate for the channel, right? So we want to think about content for Twitter is going to be different from content for LinkedIn or YouTube. So we most of us get that, but did you know that the content that you're posting on social has an average shelf life that both keeps people engaged, but also makes your content somewhat forgettable? So when you create a post, on average, you're going to get 75% of all of the engagement you will ever receive within this half-life. And make your guesses now for how long you think it takes. So for Twitter, it's 18 minutes. That's not very long. So if you're laboring more than 18 minutes on what your Twitter post will say, no one cares. It's only going to resonate for 18 minutes. Facebook is a little longer, 5 hours. Instagram, 21 hours. And again, maybe these channels are not appropriate for your very B2B focused company. LinkedIn maybe is 24 hours. YouTube, 20 days. I thought that one is interesting, and it does make the case for investing in producing valuable video content. Pinterest, 4 months. That one kind of surprised me. And the last one, this is my icon for your blog. There isn't a universal icon for that, so that's what we came up with. Your blog, you're going to get all of the engagement you'll ever receive, or at least 75% of it, in 2 years. So I think it further makes the case for the content that you're creating on your own website. A growing aspect of social is influencer marketing. And some of you are thinking, well, is influencer appropriate for manufacturing? I think it depends, but I think there's certainly some brands where it does. I like to think of influencers as advocates. These are people that your shared group of industry readers and potential clients are going to trust. The key is to choose influencers who are right for your brand. So like in this example, Adam Savage from Mythbusters posted a video where he reviewed Spot, the robot dog from Boston Dynamics. He was pitch perfect at explaining the tech and building excitement for the brand in a way that was very authentic and engaging. I learned a lot about Spot from the video and was entertained at the same time. And I think that's the goal. The tactic here is to really find the right people who have their own audience that meshes with yours to advocate for you and share their story with their audience so they can become your audience, is the goal. Okay, that was an overview of paid, earned, shared, and owned media tactics as they relate to your content marketing. The question is, where do you start? What's your first step in taking advantage of everything we discussed today? I always recommend that we start with the customer first. the key to being effective in each of these channels is truly understanding your audience. When we truly understand our audience, our creative is more targeted, more appropriate to the channel, and it's just more relevant. As a result, it performs better. And this is the reason why our client engagements really begin with audience for our clients. So in basic terms, it's really about answering 3 questions. Who are the personas of the people that you want to reach? How do they find you now? And what does their journey to becoming your customer look like? Answer these questions with a buyer persona. This is a fictional character created as a proxy for your target audience. It's really an audience archetype that helps. I think this intangible concept of our target customer become more tangible by identifying similar patterns of behavior, demographics, motivations, and it results in commonly held goals. I think the more you understand about who your current and potential clients are, the easier it will be to develop the right content that will help them discover you and progress through your sales funnel. So for example, your manufacturing company's target audience may be design engineers or procurement manufacturers. So looking at our example here, another key is to not just create this once and have it sit in somebody's drawer, but it's to use it. It's to think about, in this case, we like to think about creating content specifically for Rob. We would have this up in the writer's office, and they're imagining writing to Rob when they're writing content. They're not just imagining this amalgamation. So in this example, this is a very basic persona template, but it's going to include things like company info, demographics, what are their goals, what are their challenges, what are some of the common objections they have, and then how do we help? How do we create value for them? Now, in many organizations, you will want to create multiple buyer personas for different segments that you may have. As you're building out your persona, most manufacturers leverage their salespeople for insights. It's a great source of first-person data, but not the only source. And so here's a variety of data sources that you can use to help both build out your persona profile, and they're also helpful for looking at keyword research and competitive ranking and other techniques to understand where you might have content opportunities against these personas. Once we have a persona, we want to understand the thought process and subsequent pain points and challenges and potential solutions. This really helps us understand the customer needs better, and it allows us to deliver more targeted, relevant, and meaningful content to these personas. And so we would go through this kind of mapping exercise of what Rob's thought process would be. Once we've outlined our personas and challenges and solutions, our next step is to get in their head and really think about what their customer journey looks like and start lining up the content to inform each step of that journey. Using our persona, we're going to think about what Rob's buying process looks like. So when you're doing this, think through each step. Get your salespeople involved. Think through what that looks like. How do they come to you? And then what do the steps look like? And what content do they need at each step of that journey before they engage with a salesperson and even after? Does your sales team need to help nurture that progression to becoming your customer. So this is a very simple view of developing a persona, mapping a customer journey, and then developing a content plan to support that journey. We certainly get a lot more complex in our client work, but this gives you the basic idea. And if you're not doing this today, it's a wonderful place for you to start. One last thought on personas and customer journeys is don't forget your prospective employees. One area that we are helping more and more clients with today is their employer branding. And it's a huge issue today with just about every business, but I think it's a big issue for manufacturers specifically. Employer branding is really about using the same concepts and techniques that we talked about, but doing them for all of the personas who make up who you're talking of or targeting as your prospective employee. So think about who are these groups? Maybe you hire a lot of a certain type of employee, build a persona around that person. Think about what their journey looks like to becoming your new team member and how we can support that journey with great content and great marketing. If you're just driving people from an ad to a listing of open positions, you're going to lose out to a company that tells a better employer branding story, that is making the case for why you want to work there, and telling detailed stories about different positions and value and create an experience. It's more competitive than ever for talent, and your content and marketing is one way that you can really differentiate today. And it's as simple as that. Piece of cake, right? I think using the peso model as a guide, at a minimum, you're going to be sure to cover each aspect of content marketing strategy and be in every channel where your customers are. Today, we've covered the basics on creating a content marketing strategy to boost your awareness and help create more traffic, leads, and sales. There's a couple of things that you can do right now to impact your business. I recommend nail down your target audience. Make sure you've got a strong foundation in your blog and resource content. You can encourage customer reviews, experiment with Google ads or social advertising. Reflect on who the influencers are and the thought leaders in your industry. And finally, make sure you have a strong employer brand. It's more important today than ever. So now that you're all full of awesome content marketing ideas, I hope you're all ready to get back to your desk and start executing and creating great programs. If not, and you want to do this stuff, we're happy to lend a hand to you. The bottom line is each and every one of you have a great story to tell. And by using these principles, we can help you show up, engage your audience, and win more business. Thanks everybody for your time today. I appreciate you investing the time to attend this webinar. Thanks everyone.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. If you have any questions, now would be the time to put them in the chat. Actually, I was writing down questions for myself as you were speaking, Scott, but you seem to answer everything I wrote down with your next slide. So you are very well versed in what it is you talk about. So thank you very much for that. And this recording will be available to everyone on our website, midwestmanufacturers.com, underneath your affiliate events. So feel free to go back and look at that recording. And then if there's anything that you had that you wanted to ask, you can also just stick around for a little bit and ask Scott directly. So thank you so much for attending. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. And I can stick on for a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat.
I see one right here, Scott. It says, excellent presentation. Can we use LinkedIn posting as our blog, or should it be on a separate website?
Good question. That comes up occasionally from our clients. I would recommend not doing that. You really want the content to live on your website, to be your owned media. And you can use LinkedIn as a publishing vehicle to drive people back to your site. Joe Paluzzi has a great quote on this that he says, don't build your house on rented land. And when you're posting on LinkedIn or Facebook, you're really posting on rented ground. You don't own it and you don't control it. And they can change the algorithm tomorrow and fundamentally change how you're showing up. So by employing the principles on your own site and then using other platforms to syndicate and promote that content, it's going to help you show up in search and just drive much more engagement. So that would be my recommendation.
Fantastic. Does anybody else have any questions? Well, again, feel free to stay on and talk with Scott directly. We have a few more minutes. And I know he has plenty of answers to your questions. So we'll be on for just a few more minutes. Scott, do you have a favorite platform, or does it change from industry to industry?
Really depends on well, in terms of personal favorite platform versus platform that is going to be most effective for our clients. Most of our clients are B2B marketers and they're selling to other businesses. So LinkedIn is the main platform that most of our clients are engaging on. Many of them are creating content that they're sharing on YouTube. A lot of people don't know that YouTube is a huge search engine where people are searching for solutions to their problems, and we want to help them show up there as well. Whether or not some of the other platforms make sense for a client, that's something that we look at on a case-by-case basis. Is publishing to that platform worth the time and expense for what we think we would get for results there? But part of it's where your customers are and where your customers really expect you to be, right? And that's a good question, as you're building out your personas. What platforms are your personas on? Where do they expect you to be?
So are there any up and coming platforms to keep our eyes on? Maybe we're not using it now, but just to keep our eye out for and kind of follow and see how it develops,
Well,
and want to put content on there?
There's always up and coming platforms. We're kind of working right now on our approach to content for TikTok, and Clubhouse is an emerging platform that more brands are on. These tend to be more business to consumer focused brands, but there are certainly applications, for some B2B clients. We are seeing Instagram advertising being pretty effective, because that's a place where people are really engaging with content, and you're able to target people pretty well using Facebook's targeting criteria. So it really depends on the client and what they're trying to do. But yeah, TikTok and Clubhouse are the ones that are coming up most frequently now that we're getting questions about.
Okay. How about print advertising and content? Has that changed now?
Well, the newspapers, that really print and getting our clients' stories syndicated was how our company started 25 years ago. And the newspaper industry is going through a lot of flux, and readership in print-based newspapers is only going one direction right now. That said, we still have clients that want us to get them print placements today, and we still generate print placements. And there are pockets of the country where readership is higher. In rural areas, if you want to reach a rural audience, print is still a pretty effective strategy for that. But the majority of our syndication business today is focused on generating high quality online placements for our clients on the newspaper websites. So not as much in print anymore.
Does that include direct marketing, direct print marketing?
You know, the syndication that we do tends to be more story based. They're not as direct response focused. We tend to tie back to a lifestyle category, you know, where we have a lot of B2C clients where we're writing about trends and shopping guides and things like that we're getting placed. But increasingly on the B2B side, we are starting to share more business leader thought leadership around trends. And, you know, like a topic that's coming up a lot right now that's very relevant to manufacturing is supply chain issues. And everyone's asking the question about what's going to happen and when does it ease up? Is it going to be in Q1? Is it going to be in 2022 at all? Is it later? So we are seeing a desire for some of that content as well.
Well, that was some great information, Scott. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, if there's no other questions, I just really appreciate everybody's time and attention and attending today. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, and you'll also have our contact information in the ebook that we're going to be sending you as well. So if you have any questions after this, and if there's any way that we can be helpful, you're always welcome to reach out to me directly.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, everybody.